So, hello, I'm Anthony. I used to, years ago, head up BBC iPlayer. After I left the BBC, I built a startup, built startup, sold it, invested a few, got tired of paying lawyers, met my business partner, a genius serial angel investor and an ex-VC, guy Laurent Lafitte, and he said that lawyers, they charge a fortune, they make mistakes, we should change it. So we built SeedLegals. We had the idea back in 2016, launched in early 2017. We now got 170 people based in London, although people work hybrid these days. About 1 in 6 of all early stage UK funding rounds is on our platform, and about 40% of all the SEIS applications. So I'm not here ready to pitch SeedLegals, although you'll see it's the answers to some things, but I'm here to take you through the startup journey, and I've been there myself several times. So we're going to do this in 2 phases. One is about product market fit and product development. And then the second one, where I'll have slides, is about things to do with fundraising, getting investment ready, valuations, and so on. So I talked to lots and lots of startup founders, but I think uniquely slightly different in this room is many of you are PhD students looking to move from uni onto startup life. And hands up for that, for those who are PhD students doing fun startup next. All right, so the world of startups is almost the opposite of PhD. So, PhDs, you work for many years and you get a nice paper at the end of it. And startup is you want to be really scrappy and ship something quickly to learn if people want it or not. There's no one to mark the homework. The only thing you see is traction or not. And in the world of universities, you're looking to get grant money, so you're writing applications and showing the value of your research so that someone gives you money. But it doesn't necessarily have to have a commercial outcome. Whereas in startup world, the tone is completely different. You want to reset everything to persuade investors that you're going to have something that's going to be valuable at the end of it. So we're going to switch between these a few times. This is completely interactive, by the way. So at any point, if you yell, got a question, that's fine. I always like to do my audience homework beforehand. So I've spoken to a few people to see that, that you are PhD, that you're looking to do certain things, it's deep tech and so on. And I'll cover some of those more. So let me start on the product side. So most startups get started with the founder, typically one founder, has an idea. Most funded companies are statistically 2 founders. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 3. If it's 2, it gets financed slightly faster. And the reason 2 founders is probably the norm, according to our SeedLegals data, is as a company, I think a successful company needs 3 roles. The hustler, the domain expert, the person who had the idea of the deep tech thing or the dialysis, the doctor, whatever it is, it was their idea and they've got this passion, they want to solve some problem. But they're unable often to build it themselves. So role number 2 is the person who can help deliver it. And that's usually the CTO or product person, the delivery person. And role number 3 is the Mr. or Ms. Money. That's the person who's going to help it to get funded and make it a viable business concern that's going to get profitable and grow and so on. So as you look within to yourself, as I do periodically, and go, which one or more of these 3 am I, you now want to complement yourself with somebody who's going to add that value. And sometimes you might be all 3 roles, but it's very rare. So if I look at myself, I'm the tech product guy. I used to be the tech dude. So that's the role I bring, now CEO. My business partner is really, it was him as the domain expert on fundraising. My previous gigs be video and audio and social networks. What do I know about legals? But putting the 2 together works. And we've both been, entrepreneurs for long enough that we can both do the money side, but I really outsource that bit to him. He gets all the difficult fundraising things to do, while I just do the product stuff. So when you are looking to see, is it just me or do I need a co-founder? Think about the different roles. And that's particularly important if you're switching mind space from university, which is, white paper at the end of it, to I just need to get something out in the next 2 weeks. And also investors are often looking for much shorter term gains. And talk to a few people, They're looking to do things that might need regulatory approval in the medtech space, and that's going to take years. So how are you going to find the right investors? So anyway, to cut a long story short, you figured out the founders, you figure out which part of you are them, you've managed miraculously to find a co-founder. And now the next question is, should you actually go and build this thing that you've started? So as a serial founder myself, I'm talking to many, the problem is many founders think the big problem and the thing they need to accomplish is to build stuff. And so they spend years building stuff and only then realize nobody wants it. And what happens is you have this idea, you convince yourself people want it, you get team members to follow you, you get investors to invest, and then a year or two later, you wake up in this cold sweat going, oh my God, nobody wants what we built. So everything you want to do is to learn that vital piece of information way up front. So who here has read the LOM test? Well, there's a good fraction. So I love the LOM test. And the LOM test is called the LOM test, for those who don't know, is because, of course, you want to find out if it's a good idea or not. So you go and ask people, you go, hey, I'm doing this amazing GPS-enabled bicycle lock with blockchain that will find your bike if it's lost. I'll go with the bicycle lock. And then, don't you think it's an awesome idea? And you'll probably go, sure, because firstly, I've idealized it. Secondly, I put it in a way you can't say anything but yes. Thirdly, you don't want to offend me. I'm asking my friends. So everyone tells you yes. And it's called the mom test because you ask your mother and your mother goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. My son is such a clever boy. Of course it's a yes. Go for it. So the mom test is all about finding your real customers and asking them useful questions. So you want to find people who would actually use your product. And then you want to ask them, don't you think this is an amazing idea? You want to ask them, have you ever looked for such a thing? How much would you pay for it? Have you tried it? Are you aware of any competitors? And if the answer is, I've never looked for it, it could mean you genuinely, Apple-like onto something completely new, or chances are much higher. It's sort of a vanity project, which is you've convinced yourself it's something people want, but actually when it comes down to it, not that many people want it. And so it's much better to go, well, that was a great idea. I'm just going to find another idea before you, like Moses got your tribe to follow you through the desert as you're going. I'll probably go with that analogy a few times more because often as a founder it feels a bit like that, and with decision making as well. But really the biggest important thing is at the beginning to truly validate what you're doing. And talking to a couple of people here, you're doing impact related things. And with impact, it's a very difficult one. So if you're doing a fintech, it's a new banking card or whatever, it's fairly straightforward. It's got a business model if people want it. It's investable because it's exactly the space that investors understand. If it works, there's a good return on investment. It's not going to save the planet, but it's a typical investable proposition. It might be a noisy market. You have to show why it's different to others. But when it comes to something that is an impact piece, in the past, it's been much more difficult. And investors have often assumed impact things are not going to be a great return on investment. That may be the class of thing that if they've got available capital in the save the planet world, they'll do it. But how do you construct that to be attractive to investors? So now let me deep dive quickly on finding the right investors. And I know this comes a bit later, but we're going to go on a rollicking yarn and hopefully cover the key things. So I know everyone I've spoken to is looking for investments. I'm up halfway through a funding round. And there are two key problems to think about. Do I go to VCs, because I can Google them, or do I go find angel investors? And I'll get to that a little bit later. But just as a fun thing, you might put your investors into different categories, and you can have different approaches for different investors. So I've actually written a sort of BuzzFeed style piece. What kind of investor are you? And they fall into a few groups. And by the way, the inspiration for this, I was in the audience, and on the panel, there were some well-known London VCs. And one of them was, the audience said, how do you evaluate which companies to invest in?